He's going to be talking about mainstream FirESmart management and land use policies to support the transition towards more resilient landscapes, challenges, and opportunities.
Good morning. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much, Francisco, for the introduction. Today, I would like to talk about or to present the main results from the FirESmart project that is funded by the Portuguese government after the dramatic events that took place in summer 2017. As we all know, the number of large and high-intensity fires has increased over the last years due to different factors for global change at the large scale and also land use changes at regional scales. In the case of the Mediterranean Europe, we have and we expect to have in the future warmer and drier climate conditions and also rural abandonment processes which are increasing the field continuity and accumulation. And in addition, we have these fire suppression policies, which are based on stopping all fires as soon as possible. So in some way, they are also contributing to this accumulation of fuel. And obviously, also we have the lack of forest management at large scales. So the aims of our project is to reduce the wildfire hazard, but ensuring biodiversity conservation and the long-term supply of ecosystem services. So we want to bring together the socioeconomic and the ecological dimension of the problem. And to do so, we implement or we consider different management scenarios and land use change scenarios. We try to engage also local stakeholders from the beginning of the project to contribute and co-design those scenarios, and then to implement in a modeling platform. So we are trying to support with simulations. Finally, we are in our case modeling species distribution and different ecosystem services to analyze the trade-offs and try to identify possible solutions that it should be sustainable. The project is implemented in a transboundary context between Spain and Portugal. We focus on two biosphere reserves. The first one is the Jerez, which is here between Portugal and Galicia. And the other one is Meseta Ibérica, which is the largest biosphere reserve in Europe, with more than 1 million hectares. Both are representative rural areas in Southern Europe. They are affected by fires and land abandonment processes, even though it's in different intensities. So as I said, we try to engage stakeholders. Due to COVID situation, we couldn't organize workshops, but we sent online questionnaires to them, and it was quite interesting because we got very interesting results. We asked them about how they consider that the landscape of the fire regime will evolve in the future in those regions, but also about the possible management options that they consider that could be useful to prevent large fires. So interestingly, we found that promoting agricultural and livestock activities is the option that is supported for the local stakeholders that we consider different sectors, followed by the creation of field breaks and scrap clearing. So fuel reduction treatments. However, prescriptive burning was not so supported in our study areas, and especially the use of chemical methods. We also got some results in terms of the possible effects of those management options in different ecosystem services. I hope we can publish these results very soon. This article is one of the most important of the project because here we simulate the business as usual scenario, which is basically representing the land abandoned trends, vegetation encroachment, forest expansion, and then we envisage another alternative scenario where the policies will be supporting agricultural and livestock activities. So in our region, high net to value farmland systems. In the next scenario, we consider a conversion from pine and eucalyptus plantations to oak native forests and woodlands. And finally, we consider also the combination of both strategies. Here we have some picture representing the configuration of those landscapes. In terms of modeling, we develop our own models, which is called Remains. It's quite complex since it's able to mimic the fire ignition, spread, extinction, natural succession, post-fire regeneration, and it's coupled with a land use change model. So we can implement all these processes at the line scale level to simulate the interactions of those drivers. The results, basically, we found that policies promoting agricultural and livestock activities are providing fire suppression, additional fire suppression opportunities. We are breaking the continuity of the landscape. Unfortunately, the conversion to FirESmart forest types by itself was not enough in our study area. But we need to combine, or we can combine both strategies in our landscapes. The most interesting thing is that we also found that these scenarios that support the high net value farmlands are the best for biodiversity, as we can see here, inside and outside the protected areas, for endangered and not endangered species. In terms of carbon climate regulation services that we measure through the carbon storage and sequestration, the FirESmart conversion was the best option, followed by the business as usual or the rural abandonment. Still, the combination of FirESmart and high net value farmland systems keep constant the climate regulation services. So here we identified an opportunity, a win-win situation in terms of fire regime, conservation, and ecosystem services. But being realistic, those mountain areas are not viable from a socioeconomic point of view. They are remote, not profitable. So what happened is the new CAP still failed at reversing those trends. So here we try to combine those land use change scenarios with different levels of fire suppression in the landscape, which basically means that we can simulate more or less fire in our landscapes. So the best option for biodiversity is again the high net value farmland systems, but land abandoned processes that could be considered as a rewilding initiative, or passive rewilding, I mean, is good for some endangered and endemic species, especially those associated with forests and also amphibious species. More interestingly, we found also that 30% of the species could be favored in some way by the open habitats created by fire. So we have here an opportunity to offset the negative impact of rewilding on fire regime, on some open habitat species with the use of fire. So in the project, we have been trying to seek nature-based solutions to these extreme wildfires, but also considering other policies, the new CAP, the climate smart strategies. And for that questions, we focus on the Meseta Ibérica, which is very large and has different protection regimes. In the first study, we try to predict the impact of these climate smart or fire smart scenarios. We found that in terms of carbon regulation, afforestation, or rewilding initiatives could be the best options, as we could expect. And in contrast to the other study area, they were also the best for biodiversity. here we can see there are the larger number of species favored by these strategies. But finally, it's okay. In the biosphere reserve, there is already a zonation. We have core areas with the strict protection. Then we have the buffer and transition. And this is the map of the biosphere reserve zonation. But if we want to maximize or optimize reduce the impact of wildfires, but ensuring biodiversity and the wide range of ecosystem services, we need to at least consider the expansion of core areas, because as we can see here, there are clear trade-offs across the scenarios for the different ecosystem services, and also in terms of fire regime. The worst case scenario is the BAU, and also for biodiversity. But in summary, we need to expand the core areas. We need to relocate those funds in the biosphere reserve to ensure biodiversity and ecosystem services in this area. So as take-home messages, in our regions, rural abandonment is expected to increase the flammability of our landscapes, which is also in line with the predictions that we have for fire weather index. So an effective implementation of a new and greener cap could be benefit for biodiversity and also for fire suppression opportunities. Still, if this policies continues to fail, the use of fire, modulated by fire suppression or prescribed burning, could help the implementation of climate-smart strategies such as rewilding or tree plantations. And as I said, the redesign of protection regimes on these biospheres, including the expansion of the core protected areas. So we need to be smart. Grazie per la vostra attenzione.
Good, we have some time for questions. Question back there.
Back to your slide that said 33% of species benefit from open habitat that could be created by fire. I'm curious, those species, are they under current conditions for abandoned farmland that's recovering, or what conditions did you consider that species group?
That species are mostly species associated with shrublands, with shrublands, grasslands, some of them also breeding in farmlands. So they are species that has been negatively affected by land abandonment processes. In the study area in Jerez, we have a lot of sparse vegetation, but the vegetation encroachment and forest expansion has been reducing the habitat for many of those species, and fire in our simulations is creating new habitat for them. So their response in terms of habitat availability positively to this, to have more fire in those areas.
Thank you.
Davide?
Thanks, Adrian. I'm a fan of your papers. And from your simulations emerge a pattern, several patterns. Mm-hmm. Do you have evidences that there are empirical tests that confirm the results of your simulations? Because to my knowledge, so far in Europe, we have still few empirical evidence that these processes has a leverage on fire regime. And so it will be very interesting to have a comparison between your simulations and
empirical
test.
Yeah, thank you, David, for the question. Yes, in fact, I'm now supervising a PhD student in Galicia, where we are using observed data for bears, and we are considering the severity index from satellite. And we already found that there are several species that are affected, some of them positively, others negatively, to the severity of fires or transient fires. So, and there is a large number. So I think that this study is confirms in some way the important role of fire in our mountain landscapes. But it's just one side of the problem. Regarding the other measures, there are different studies in the region, including north of Portugal, that are quite in line with these results, but also came mostly from simulations. So I agree that we need more empirical studies on all these components.
Questions? I have one. Oh, yeah. Regarding the interviews you did with stakeholder groups, I didn't get to quite see it because I was turning. I couldn't see it there, and then I couldn't see it here. Did you notice subtle variations between stakeholder groups?
No, we didn't found difference. That was surprising for us. We have at least 4 different sectors included in the stakeholders and 2 different study areas, but they were quite consistent in terms of the answers to the different questions. Was surprising.
So you interviewed, I imagine, farmers, shepherds, park directors, authorities.
Yeah, managers, forestry sector. I don't know, different farmlands. Yeah, I think that the most important are well represented. I hope we can see the paper soon published because it's interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, I have one announcement to make. Nicola Frasinelli's talk